Jesse and Scott trying to get her going here. Using compressed air to get it started. Looks like everything's under control. Well, we're getting a little warmer here. She's revving up now. Now we're cruising. Feel the heat back here. The afterburner kicking in and out here. Get the start here just a second here. How you doing, Jesse?
Good.
Okay, and here's John.
It's going.
And on Scott.
Howdy.
This is the gas turbine project here, May 2005.
All right. Starting off, we just got the basics. 2 propane tanks. The first one here runs into the combustion chamber and fuels that, and the second one runs up around to the afterburner. The combustion chamber tank just has 1 valve on it that can be opened all the way. This afterburner has 2 valves, the normal one and this red one, and both of those can be opened all the way too. Moving over, we've got the ignition coil for the afterburner, and the second ignition coil for the combustion chamber is mounted up underneath along with the oil pump. Here's the oil reservoir. The best type of oil to run is really lightweight, 5 or maybe even 10, but the pump isn't really that strong, so the lighter oil the better, and it's really not that critical, more just to cool it and give it some lubrication. Okay. Control panel, we have the initial, or the main air intake, and that's run with copper tubing up to the intake side of the turbo. That gets the fans moving, the blades moving, and some air into it. Depending on how cold it is outside and how cold the engine is when you go to start it, you might need some auxiliary air to get some more things moving through to get it warmed up. And then once it's started the first time and the whole engine is warm, you really don't need any type of extra air. It can be started just off the main air. Okay. Moving across the front panel, we have the main power, which also just runs off that simple extension cord we have hooked up. So just plug that in and the whole system gets power. With the main power, the igniter, one switch runs the ignition for the combustion chamber and the afterburner. The oil, which the oil pump only needs to be turned on once a minute for just a couple seconds, just to get some new oil through and make sure the oil doesn't heat up. Throttle, which is just a normal valve, and the afterburner, which is a push button. When running the afterburner, it should only be on for 5 seconds or so, because the ignition points will actually get red hot in the exhaust tube, and so if it's ran for too long, they could melt off and sputter a little bit out the back, which would not be very safe. So, and then we also have a digital tach hooked up that reads the intake side of the blades. So on startup here, if the main power's on, make sure it's got some decent oil in it. Turning the igniters on. Now when you first turn it on, the main sound you're going to hear is the igniter and the tube. So to make sure the combustion chamber ignition is on, which is key since we're going to start filling it with propane here in a second, just listen to the intake and you can hear it kind of a tin can, more of a noise inside there. So that's going. So we've cracked the throttle about a quarter and you'll hear it poof and the propane ignite. And then once that's going, we just turn the air all the way on. Now when we have the engine started, once it's sustained, you can turn the air off and the igniter off because the propane underneath will stay lit. But once we go to run the afterburner, which I'm going to do next, the igniter has to be turned back on so that the igniter in the afterburner is lighted, and then we can hit the afterburner and that'll jet the propane in and should light. When you first start the afterburner, it'll kind of sputter and not be running fully. So hold it down for a few seconds and it should kick down. You'll hear the pitch change dramatically and it will sound more efficient actually. It's kind of interesting. And then, like I said before, when you're running the afterburner, only do it for as long as 5 seconds, no longer really. And after that you can just do burst just to make sure that the igniter coil and the afterburner stays cool. So we'll go ahead and, also on the side here we have a valve that runs air off the compressed air off the intake side and into the exhaust to make sure that the afterburner has adequate oxygen to burn the propane. Depending on the day conditions, how much wind there is, the valve might not need to be opened. The afterburner might run fine as it is. Most of the time once you start the afterburner, you'll need to open this up, and then you'll probably hear it, hear the pitch change, and the afterburner actually running well. And once this is open, though, the engine will start to lose RPMs. So once you run the afterburner a little bit for a few minutes, maybe you're going to want to close this up, shut the afterburner off, and let the engine regain speed. So we'll go ahead and start it back up and show you how to run the afterburner. Main power's on, igniter's going, sounds good. Crack it, started, no oil.
Turn your propane on. When you turn your propane on, as soon as you turn your propane on, give it air.
Okay.
It'll go out.
Now this is informed by another teammate here that as soon as you throttle up, here it goes, turn the air on right after. Few extra things I might have forgot to mention. You're shutting it down here. Make sure you run nice cool oil in there when you're done. Plenty of oil at the end. When you're starting the afterburner too, when you turn the igniter back on, it's good to have somebody stand back quite a ways and just to make sure that the igniter is actually lighting. You can see the sparks in the tube, and then they back there can give you the thumbs up, and you'll be able to push button the afterburner. I'm sure you heard the tone change once the afterburner started going. If there's anything else,
Probably for when you get done running it and you're done for the day, make sure your power's off. Go underneath there, turn off all the valves on the tanks, and then release all the propane that's in the lines, just so that there isn't so much pressure in the lines for storage purposes.
Yeah.
Then after that, that's about it.
One other thing, once you're starting it up, to make sure that's sustained well, make sure your RPMs are about 2,300 before you shut the air off, and 23,000, sorry, 23,000.
Okay.
But
What's the peak RPM for this?
Peak R.
What are
peak
they?
RPM is really actually unlimited. The only reason why it'll run about 25,000 RPM right now is because we got a 10-pound regulator on the tank.
Yep.
If you took
Okay,
off the
let's
10-pound
see.
regulator, you could probably triple, quadruple the
What-
RPM.
What do the turbines run at? What's the high end for those? The
High end for those
turbochargers
Some of them can crank up over a couple 100,000 RPM.
in normal use?
Normal
They
use
go
on
that
it,
fast.
but
Okay.
It all depends on what your application is, because
Okay.
some of them don't like to run past 20,000 RPM. So it just all varies. Right now, honestly, for school use and for testing purposes, I wouldn't go past what it does right now because
Yeah.
it's safe
Okay.
and
Yep.
it's efficient. It runs good, and you're fine.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Pretty neat. Bravo, bravo, bravo.